Hello and a very warm welcome to Fact and Fiction, the show where we check facts and also sift propaganda and fake news for you. I'm Nikhil Ananda, and with me today is a very special guest, Mr. Vipul Saxena, who is a pilot and a civil aviation expert. Vipul, thanks so much for joining us today. And the reason why we have him on the show today is not because we want to bust fake news, but because we want to talk about a very real incident, in fact, that happened yesterday, and that's shaken up flyers across India. And this is after two Jet Airways pilots, quote unquote, forgot to turn on a switch that controls cabin pressure on a service between Mumbai and Jaipur. This, Vipul, of course, led to 30 flyers severely suffering nose and ear bleeding, and the flight had to, of course, return back to Bombay for an emergency landing. Before we actually go into the details about what went wrong and what needs to be done in order to correct these kinds of correct the situation so these kinds of incidences don't happen in the future, give me a sense of exactly what happened and how the story played out.
See, the kind of details which have come through various information centers, what exactly happened is that there is a bleed which comes from the engine and which is responsible to maintain cabin pressure, and that bleed has a system available which can be put off in certain situations. So that bleed was put off by the pilot, and
so
the
this
pilot
is a bleed switch.
It's a bleed switch.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, from engine there is a air which comes and which maintains the cabin pressure. So this bleed switch was firstly switched off by the pilot, and second thing, after takeoff he forgot to switch it on. This is what exactly happened. And because of that, when the aircraft reached to 8,000 feet and above, the sensor sensed that there is a drop in cabin pressure, and the oxygen mask fell down.
So what exactly is the function of this bleed switch?
The function is that when we are on ground, there is a particular atmospheric pressure which is safe enough for human being to sustain life. As we go up, the pressure reduces, and when the pressure reduces, the oxygen quantum reduces while inhaling the air. So what happens is, this bleed air, it maintains the pressure of what was on ground or at the level of 5 to 6,000 feet, so that even if aircraft flies to 30,000 feet, there is no breathing problem and there is no temperature problems.
And the pilot forgot to switch that off? I mean, isn't that a very sort of gross level mistake? Does this happen often, or is there no precedence to this sort of incident?
No, this is something, I think, first incident across the world, and it's one of the very serious mistake by the pilot, especially when this bleed switch has been given provision to switch it off only when the aircraft has to take off from a short runway where you don't have so much power available, or when you are taking off from a runway which is located at the high temperature places where you need extra thrust to take off. So what pilot is supposed to do, he supposed to switch off this bleed so that they get extra thrust and aircraft can take off. Okay. While in Bombay there was no such situation, neither the runway was short nor it was high temperature. So it was purely pilot mistake from beginning, that firstly he switched it off. Second thing, after takeoff there is a check whether you put it off or on. There is a check after takeoff that bleed switch is on.
You know, how much more disastrous could something like this have gotten? Because right now, of course, 30 flyers, according to government figures, were actually bleeding from their nose and their ears. But could it have become worse?
Yeah, it could have been really catastrophic, because at that height, I think it was already reached about 14,000 feet, and at that height pressures is very low, and it could have created severe hemorrhages on people who has got high blood pressure problems. They could have had brain hemorrhages. People who have got breathing problem like asthmatic patient, they would have had serious choking of their lungs, and especially infants, they generally have a nose block problem, so they would have collapsed. And even for normal person also, at that altitude, this pressure is so low that it could have bursted the arteries, blood arteries, and it could have happened anything. Your eardrum would have popped out, your eyes would have come out, you would have had severe nose bleeding, all your sinuses would have come under pressure. So there are many things which could have happened because of this.
Thankfully, all of those things didn't happen. Did not happen, and
Yes.
we should thank God for that. But I want to talk to you about Jet Airways' response to this, because I read their statement, which is very cagey and which is very sort of wishy-washy, because what they say, in fact, is that they've actually, put their guests on other alternative flights so that they can travel. They've also referred the sort of injured guests into the hospitals. Their figure, by the way, is just 5 guests as opposed to 30, I think, which is the DGCA figure.
Right.
And they say that they're extending their full cooperation to the DGCA for the ongoing investigation. But shouldn't they be saying a little bit more about the error, and shouldn't they be apologizing for what the pilots have done?
Absolutely. I mean, of late, the approach of airlines towards the passenger safety and passenger comfort has really become pathetic. They are just not bothered about passenger comfort and passenger safety. And in that context, I think the statement by Jet Airways is horrible. They could have done much more than that. And I would expect that they should voluntarily give them a good compensation.
Right. But just going forward, in order to ensure that such incidents don't happen, what needs to change at a systemic level, Vipul? Because we're seeing increasing number of, such sort of incidents happening. Are they reported adequately? Is the DGCA a body with enough teeth to take care of this, or there needs to be a more sort of stringent penal action in order to ensure that we essentially fly safely in this country?
Currently the system which is available is that DGCA does an inquiry, and thereafter where this report goes, nobody knows about it. What action has been taken, nobody knows about it publicly. There may be some action taken, but it has never been circulated to the press or to the people that on so and so incident this is what we found and this is action what we have taken. So there has to be some more transparency in this. And second thing, I think time has come when a number of incidents wherein airlines is at fault, or pilots are at fault, or engineers at fault. I think time has come when they are supposed to be subjected to penal action. What we do in a normal case on road when somebody violates traffic rules or somebody meets with an accident. So I think time has come when we need to resort to the penal action against pilots or engineers or anybody who is responsible for this.
Well, it's certainly a very, very scary incident, and hopefully a wake-up call, in fact, for the aviation industry in terms of really righting some of the big systemic wrongs that are putting consumers and flyers' safety into question. Thank you very much, Vipul, for this primer. Hope our viewers also have understood a little bit more about the incident, and thank you very much for watching. Do please, of course, keep sending us those fake stories and videos as well on the number they're flashing on your hotline, and we'll take those up on Fact versus Fiction next week. Thanks for watching.